the next tool I'm going to go over is called a table saw. And a table saw is a very, very large rip saw that is upside down and mounted into a table. So that instead of moving the saw, you move the piece of wood. So this happens to be called a saw stop. It's a very large one and has a computer control in it. The blade will actually drop if you try to touch it, so it won't cut you. The saw is $4,500. I'll go ahead and raise the blade up here just so you can see it. So there's the blade. A regular table saw, this is something that you would buy yourself. They run about 500 bucks. Does not have the safety in it. So the way this works is if you touch the blade, the computer can sense electricity and the blade will drop so you don't get hurt. The downside to that is you cannot run treated wood through this because treated wood has copper sulfate in it. Copper conducts electricity. So if you go to push this through and it has enough copper or enough moisture in it, it will sense electricity from your hands and drop the blade. When it drops, the cartridge costs a little over $100 to replace and the blade anywhere from $20 to $100. So it has to be non-treated wood, plywood. This happens to be OSB, which stands for oriented strand board, which is just little chips of wood. So just like the rip saw, you want to set the height of your blade just a little bit over this. There's no reason to have it this high. That's just a way to get hurt more if your hand got caught in there. I'm going to lower it down to about there. You have several guards on here. This is the first one saying, hey, you're about to push your hand into there. The red tells you to keep your fingers away. And then this one also helps tell you to keep your fingers away and also directs the sawdust back. This piece right here is called a splitter. As it pushes the wood through, it keeps the wood from pinching on the blade. You'll find in construction a lot of times wood has an internal pressure and will get caught on your blades. So they've done that. And then right here are anti-kick bars. As the wood pushes through, I can't pull back now, those grab. So you can only go forward. That keeps the wood from coming back and hitting you in the gut. If you need large anti-kick bars, you can drop these down. They do dig into the wood a little bit, so they allow you to put these up so that you don't damage smooth pieces of wood. This is the rail with measurements, so you can set how deep you want to cut it. So right now I put that at 14 inches. So this piece will be 14 inches wide. It'll cut right here. And you can set it all the way down to about ½ an inch. Then you just push down on this. This one happens to have a couple safeties. So if you swing around here, most saws only have one on switch. This one has 2 on switches because it has a computer. You have to flip the first one up and you'll have a green light and a red light blinking. This will not work until that red light stops blinking. Once the red light stops blinking, then I can pull the other one and the saw will work. So now the computer did its checks. It says it works. I'll go ahead and turn it on just to show you. As I turn it off, this starts flashing. Until that blade stops moving, you cannot turn this machine back on because the computer has to check it again to make sure it works. It checks it every single time we turn it on and off. So in order to run a piece of wood through here, you have to make sure that your hands do not go up where the blade is. They can be on either side, and you can push it straight through. They can be on one side, they can be on the other side, or you can use what's called push blocks. If you have to have this close to the blade, there's no way to put your hand in here. So as you're pushing this piece through, you'd have to hand out here safely, and this one comes up and pushes, and if it gets cut by the blade, it's no big deal. So I like to keep at least 3 of these. We make them in class, but you can also buy plastic ones. The reason I like 3 ready to go, sometimes you go to push something and you'll drop it. Well, you don't want to have to bend over to pick that up while this saw is running because that wood could kick back and then hit you in the face. So you have several of them. Or maybe you picked one up and the angle on it's bad and it won't grab right. So you want extras so they're there. Okay, I'm going to run a piece through. I had to turn the vacuum on. I don't run this machine without the vacuum. That's what that loud noise is because the sawdust builds up inside. The motor and computer is bad for it. So I'm just going to go ahead and set this at about 10 inches. And then I'll put place the straight edge up against this and turn it on and then run it through. I've already got the first switch on, so safety check. I'm going to put this down. You're not allowed to run this machine without the guards in school. Professionals will. You can put different blades and things in it. But as far as us and you guys learning, you're not allowed to run it without all of this on. When I'm pushing it through, I cannot see the blade, so I'm not looking at the blade. I'm looking here to make sure my wood is straight, and I'm making sure my hands are nowhere near in front or in the red. That switch down there allows me to take my knee and just hit it. You do nothing else until that blade stops. And I can't see the blade, so I'm not sure if it stopped, but I can look down here if the light's blinking, then the blade's turning. It just stopped blinking, so I know it's done. Now I can pull a piece of the wood out. The next thing I want to show you is we were using this rail, so you put a straight edge up against this. But if you have a piece of wood that doesn't have a straight edge, you can't use this. We have what's called a miter gauge. It's underneath, and it sits in one of these two slots, and you can tip this to any angle you need, or if you do it straight, you can put the piece of wood, over here. You can put the piece of wood on this. This now holds it straight, and you can push it through. You cannot use both of these at the same time, because if you try, you'll end up getting it binding. So it'll try to sit on this, it's trying to push against that, and then you have problems. And it usually twists on the blade and damages the wood. If the wood is big enough, like a 4x8 sheet of plywood or OSB, you'll have anywhere from 2 to 4 people putting the piece of wood through, whether it's lengthwise or widthwise. You'll have several people. Only one person, though, is the one pushing it, watching the stop, keeping it straight. The others are just catching it. And if you look over here, you have extra people on this side, and we also have this roller bar that we can adjust to the height to help carry the wood as it comes off. The key is to make sure it stays perfectly straight, because if it starts to twist, the first thing it will do is it'll start to cut on this red stuff, but if you twist enough, the metal will break, and then the blade could go flying, and this is to stop that. The last thing on this machine is when you are done, you have to turn off the second power switch, which was the yellow one. Lower the blade all the way down, so that if for some reason somebody decided to turn it on, the blade's not exposed for anybody to hit it. And then to keep these guards from getting hit and broken, I like to slide this up close to it and just lock it down so that it's safe, and then you clean the machine off.